I went to college outside of Pittsburgh, and near my college was this super cool place called Raccoon Creek State Park. It was not anywhere near as gorgeous as California is, but for Pittsburgh, it was pretty great. Everyone at my college loved this park because they had so much to offer. They had campgrounds, they had hikes, they had biking trails, they had waterfalls. But the best part of Raccoon Creek State Park, in my humble opinion, was the lake. This gorgeous, big, beautiful lake. And they had this little beach area on this one corner of the lake. So the first time I ever went to Raccoon Creek State Park, I was a freshman. It was the beginning of the year. And a bunch of my new friends in my dorm were like, come on, get in the car. We're gonna go drive to Raccoon Creek State Park. So I'm really excited. I've heard all about this park, and we get to the park. And as soon as we get to the park, we all sprint towards the lake. And we start splashing around in the water and swimming and doing handstands and chicken fights and Marco Polo and all these great games. And I start swimming out as far as I can. This particular lake, there was a boundary. There was this big rope went around the side of the lake that said, okay, you can swim up to here, but you can't swim past. So I swam up to the very edge of the boundary, and I reach out and I grab the rope around the boundary. And the rope, which had been underwater for a really long time, it fell apart in my hand. It became too waterlogged, it was too weak, so it broke in half. That meant about 100 little rope splinters went right into the palms of my hands. I was in extreme amounts of pain and my hands were starting to bleed, but I tried to hide it from my new friends because they were my new friends. I didn't really know them. I was in pain. I was embarrassed. I didn't want to show them. But a girl, Jane, who was my next door neighbor at my dorm, she realized something was going on. She goes over to me and she sees my hands and she takes me by the arm and she helps pull me to shore. She sits me down and she takes my hands in hers and she spends the next hour and a half picking out the 100 splinters from my hands. And she's so gentle, and she's so kind, and I'm in so much pain, and I'm so hurt, and I'm embarrassed, and I'm also really disappointed because it looks like my friends are having a great time. I start to cry. I drop my head, and I cry, and I don't mean to, but I couldn't hold it back. And Jane keeps picking out the splinters from my hands. And she eventually finished. Even though my hands still hurt, all the splinters were out. And I look up to her to tell her thank you, to express my gratitude. And when our eyes meet, I realize that her eyes are red-rimmed and there's streaks on her face. And I realized in that moment that my friend was crying too. She was crying because I was in pain. She was suffering with me. That's what the word compassion means. You've heard the word compassion? To have compassion on someone means to literally suffer with them. She was crying because she knew I was hurting, she knew I was in pain, and she couldn't take away the hurt. She couldn't take away the pain or the disappointment or the embarrassment or the frustration, but what she could do is be with me through this pain and suffer with me. I don't know what this time of coronavirus has been like for you. Maybe you've low-key loved it. Maybe you're super glad you don't have to go to school, you don't have to get up early, you don't have to go through that stress. Maybe you're happy sports seasons are done or the play is canceled. Maybe you're happy, and if that's where you're at, that's great. But I'm guessing a lot of you are really frustrated. You're really bummed out, you're disappointed, you might be bored, you might be in pain. You might be frustrated and angry and hurt. I feel you. I get that. I'm with you. And God is also with you through this all. Remember, He's Emmanuel. He's God with us. He's with you in this suffering, in this pain, in this boredom, whatever you're going through. God is with you. He has true compassion on you. Remember, compassion means to suffer with. That's what God does for you. Remember, He's not sitting on a throne of lollipops in heaven, like chilling and not caring. He's not saying, go through this hard time alone. That's not what God is doing. You guys remember gym class? I don't know if you still have gym class in 8th grade. I remember gym class, and I loved a lot of gym class because there was dodgeball and kickball, and that was fun. But the worst part of gym class was running the mile. We had to run laps around the gym or around the track about once a month, and our gym teacher, she would sit in the stands, she would have her stopwatch in her hand, she would be drinking a big liter of Coke, and she would be yelling at us. She would say, run faster, as she was just lounging in the bleachers. And I always wanted to yell up at my gym teacher. I wanted to be like, why don't you put down the Diet Coke and run with us. God runs with us. He's not chilling on the bleachers as we run laps, as we struggle. God himself comes out of heaven and he runs with us. He goes through our sufferings. He goes through our pains. He unites himself to you and to everything that you're going through. Just like my friend Jane was with me, she suffered with me. She had compassion on me. She went through my pain with me. That's what God does with you. He leads us through the suffering, through the pain, and he gives purpose to the pain. With our God, with Jesus Christ, there is no cross, there is no suffering, there is no death without a resurrection, without triumph, without glory. God gives meaning to your suffering and pain, and he brings you to the triumph. He brings you to the other side. These times are hard, but if you let him, God can go through this time with you, and you can come out stronger than ever and closer than ever. My friend Jane, that girl who helped me pick out the splinters, she became my best friend in college, and she is still one of my best friends. Why? Because we went through hard times with each other and we stuck with it. Same with God. He's going through these hard times with you. If you share yourself, if you don't try to hide your suffering, if you don't try to hide your pain, if you don't say, this is fine, like the dog in the meme, God can unite himself to your sufferings and you two can grow closer than ever. God knows you. He loves you. He calls you by name. He gives you an identity. He gives you value. He gives you dignity. He gives you purpose. He gives you new life. God is greater than this coronavirus and everything that comes with it. He is stronger. Let his love awaken you. Amen.